So many people start off excited to learn a new language, but soon after that initial dopamine hit runs out, they inevitably give up. I used to be in the exact same position until I learned about how the brain learns languages. I realized not only why I'd really struggled in the past, but in fact, how learning a language can be really simple. So in this video, I'm going to show you why so many people give up before they see any results and the 3 simple changes you can easily implement so you can confidently learn a language and get fluent faster. It's super easy to binge language learning videos on YouTube that are in your native language without actually doing anything in the language that you want to learn. You don't want to look back in a year and wish you'd started sooner. Language learning is about what you do and how you put this into practice. And that is the major difference that sets apart successful learners. Even though I struggled with language learning for a while, the only reason I'm actually finally getting to somewhere is because I realized this next thing that I'm going to tell you. So here is a graph. Now, this is your journey in trying to learn a new language. For whatever reason, you're motivated in trying to learn a new language. Maybe you dream of moving abroad, or perhaps you just watched some sweet language learning content on YouTube. After your initial excitement from the first couple of weeks begins to die down, your understanding of how far there is to go starts to grow. You doubt as to whether you can actually do this and whether you can make it fit with your lifestyle. And so you're here in what they call the Valley of Despair, which is a cheery name, right? This is where I think most people give up. They haven't found a way of integrating language learning into their life, and so they stop here before they see any real results. But don't give up here before you start to see all of this progress. There is so much resistance when you start a new language. You're stepping out of your comfort zone where you have very little idea of what's going on. There's not that much content you can enjoy, and if you do try and speak, it can be really painful to try and string some sentences together. More importantly, it feels like you can't yet do any of the fun things that you want to because you don't yet know the language. My experience is that generally speaking, the process gets easier over time because you can start to access more interesting content in a language and it becomes part of your daily life. The problem is that most people give up way before they get there. You don't make any progress, and so when you do try again, it feels like you're starting at square one again. The trick is staying with it long enough to actually see the results. And that's easier said than done, right? Well, this next point is key.
Oh, and very quickly, I have a newsletter these days where I share tips and thoughts on language learning. There's a link in the description.
I remember when I first started learning Chinese and we had this textbook to work through. Now, I'm not throwing any shade on textbooks, but after we got to the end of this short beginner's course, I felt like I barely knew any Chinese, which is true because I didn't. So I thought I'd go through it again because I'd forgotten most of it from the classes anyway. And then someone recommended another beginner's book to me, so I tried that one in case my experience was any better. And not only was I not enjoying what I was doing, I found myself trapped in beginner land, unable to get out. Sound familiar? The basics will always be the basics, and so you're going to see the same words and phrases over and over again. They're literally going to be in every piece of content in some way, shape or form. Instead of waiting until you've mastered them before you're ready to move on, just keep going. That's going to be different for everybody. So it could be as simple as just moving on to the next part of the course that you're doing. For many, it's time to find new content or a resource which you can understand a lot of. You're after something that builds on the foundation you've already created. Podcasts aimed at learners are fantastic if they're in the language that you're learning, but whatever you choose, don't expect to understand everything. Otherwise, it's too easy for you. Honestly, just moving on was one of the biggest things that I've learned because we need so much content to genuinely acquire a language naturally. There isn't one single thing that's going to give you everything that you need. Review by all means, but keep going forward. Find more content and keep up the momentum. As a learner without much experience, what you want is a straightforward answer. Just tell me the best way to learn a language and I'll do that. I felt totally lost when I tried to find out the best way because there's an absolute mountain of advice out there that just keeps getting bigger and you just don't know where to start. It's like us going to a restaurant with an infinite menu and me saying the only good thing on the menu is the pickled cockles. Honestly, nothing else will make you feel full like this does. You're wasting your time if you try anything else. If you're allergic to the fish, you're not going to order it, right? You'd have the chicken, and that's what some language learning advice feels like. Not the pickled cockles, it's a simile, obviously. The answer is try stuff for long enough to see if you like it, but if you hear advice and you don't think it's for you, then ignore it. It isn't one size fits all. It was only when I changed my perspective and I trusted in the process was I able to stick with it and make some progress. Successful learners are patient and they do what works for them. So if you want to know the biggest thing to put this into practice, check out this video next.